You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Gary Settle.
an inmate at a federal prison. Hang up to decline the call or to accept. Dial 5 now.
Whenever prisons or prisoners are portrayed by the media or the entertainment industry, or even just discussed by ordinary people, often the expression doing hard time is used. I have served many years in just the sorts of places that are sometimes used as examples of hard time. And to be honest, I did not and do not think of those years as hard time, or the rest of them as easy time. It was just doing time. When prisoners say doing time, we mean it literally. How we deal with or mitigate the damage of those units of time we are serving, whether it's years, decades, or forever. Some of us also consider self-improvement and attempting to regain our freedom part of doing time. There's an opposite of that, of course. We refer to it as time doing you. That is when you allow your conditions to define you and fall into negative or self-destructive behaviors like drugs, gangs, or unnecessary violence. But the coldest, most inhumane time I have done were the years I spent at the ADX, or Administrative Maximum, in Florence, Colorado. Among other labels, it has been described as the Alcatraz of the Rockies and the most secure prison in the world. I was taken there right after it opened. I was there with the Tim McVeigh, the Unabomber, and some of the first World Trade Center bombers, and various gang and mob leaders. I'm often asked what it was like being there, and it is a hard question. This is because your circumstances changed there over the years. Also, there was no common ground to start from, nothing to compare it to. My standard answer is, imagine being locked behind 2 steel doors into a very small bathroom. And 3 times a day, large angry men bring food to you. 5 times a week, 3 of those large angry men chain you up and escort you with sticks to a slightly larger room for an hour of court-mandated recreation. That's an incomplete answer, but it usually ends the conversation, which is the point. For the purposes of this discussion, I will try and be more detailed. One primary aspect I remember is that in the ADX, for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. Of course, it was solitary confinement, but this is the modern version, with soundproofing and baffles in the vents, etc. We did have intermittent contact with a few people on the range at rec periods, but that was a few hours a week. The staff did not want to talk to me, and I did not want to talk to them. Sometimes I would go weeks without speaking to anyone, and did not think too much about it. For the first few years, you were permitted one 15-minute phone call a month, and sometimes I had to practice talking when they brought the phone to my cell, just to loosen up my vocal cords. And the 15 minutes is a set-in-stone rule. When my dad died in 1996, I'd already used my call for the month, so I had to wait until the next month to call my mom. Another factor that slowly began to build was a sense of pressure and tension. This was because the ADX is set up in designated terms. For example, I started with a 5-year program, which means if I took classes, which are broadcast over the TV, paid my fine and restitution payments, and most importantly, did not get a shot, which is an instant report for a violation of the rules, after 5 years, I could go back to just the maximum security prison. So, what that means simply is if I had been there
from a federal prison
for 1 week or 5 years or any point in between and got charged with any rule violation, which could be anything from saving food from a meal or insolence and upwards in severity, then I went back to day 1 and had to start the 5 years over. The pressure and tension comes from the knowledge that you could blink and lose your focus and lose years of your life. Say, for example, you were 3 years into your program and got a shot. Bang. There goes 8 years of your life. The 3 years you had just done, and now starting over, 5 more years to complete the program. That math begins to consume your thoughts. I was actually almost 5 years into the program when I was locked up in the special housing unit under investigation for a possible violation of the rules. I was eventually cleared, but it was an unpleasant few months. Those aspects and others like the only view out of your window being of steel girders, concrete walls, razor wire, and a thin sliver of the sky, they had to have an effect on me. But what? I'm not comfortable in crowds, but then I never really was. But am I any more hyper alert than I would be if I had just been in maximum security prisons? Any more of a light sleeper or insomniac? I don't know. But when I compare myself with some of the guys I was there with, I wonder why some of us are semi-normal or semi-okay, and some are very much not. True, some guys have gone home after doing the program, and as far as I know, are all right. But I know two guys who finished the program and then committed penitentiary murders, one of a prison guard. I know two who were murdered themselves. How many committed suicide in the ADX is a matter of debate, as is the number who have gone just crazy. Guys who have been to the ADX or any long-term lockdown program, we know each other somehow. And consciously or otherwise, we try to look out for each other. Often this transcends race or gang affiliation, even if it did not while you were locked up. Neither I nor the people who design and run the programs like these, special housing, special management, closed monitoring, administrative maximum, and all the other names they have, can say what the end result of these programs are. Do they drive people crazy? Cause them to be more violent or suicidal? Because I've seen that happen. Or do they reduce violence and make prisons safer, as the administrators say? No one can answer that question. Just quote arbitrary statistics. What I can say is that the threat of places like these won't stop a man from committing desperate acts to protect his life or to regain it. A man who has nothing left to lose, nothing worth caring about, is the most dangerous kind. In closing this up, here is my opinion from the perspective of a first-time offender with a 177-year sentence. Instead of spending billions of taxpayer dollars to warehouse and lock down criminals forever, which potentially makes them more violent or crazier, why don't we reevaluate the whole system from top to bottom and ask, why does this country with 5% of the planet's population have 25% of the world's prisoners, more than China and Russia combined? Why are so many prisoners in lockdown facilities? And are these places a risk to increase mental illness and sociopathic behavior in prisoners? There has to be a cheaper, more effective model. Most, if not all, of our allies in the Western industrial world have lower crime rates and lower incarceration rates. What are they doing different? My suggestion is for us to go back to a mechanism that works and worked for years, but fell out of favor in the last few decades of tough-on-crime policies. And that would be the reinstatement and increased use of parole, often called earned early release. With all the recent talk of lowering prison costs, fixing mandatory minimums and drug laws, and the increased use of executive clemency, why did they not use this mechanism, which was designed to address all of these issues and more? It is not just a let everyone out of prison policy. Each prisoner's individual case can be evaluated by a government agency already in existence, and every aspect of their situation can be addressed: their criminal history, their rehabilitative efforts, their age, their length of sentence, time served, whether the law changes would affect them. Even victim impact can be addressed by having victims of the crimes, if any, participate. The taxpayer money that was saved by releasing older or rehabilitated prisoners to community confinement or even home confinement could be spent on those programs and policies that are shown to reduce crime, incarceration rates, and recidivism rates. It would also give prisoners like me hope and incentive to stay out of trouble, because I would understand that my self-improvement programming, prison reform efforts, and clear conduct were more than just doing time.